It was a Wednesday. My two chief surgeons called me into the office and told me to assemble a team headed towards the Western Mountain execution ground. After gunshots were heard, man lying on the ground with a single bullet wound extracted the liver and two kidneys. He tried to resist my scalpel cut, but too weak. There was bleeding. He was still alive, but I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel anything but like a full programmed robot doing its task.
China's communist regime leads the world in illegal organ harvesting and in some cases extracting organs from living patients. That's what we're talking about today on the BL News. So, where did you get your kidney? Seems like a strange question considering we were all born with our kidneys. The only time you would consider asking such a question is after you underwent organ transplant surgery. And in today's modern societies, with all the checks and balances and so many regulations controlling how our businesses and institutions operate, you would hope that a donor providing you with a vital, life-saving organ did so voluntarily. That may not be the case if you choose to travel to China for organ transplant surgery. Ethan Gutmann, Nobel Peace Prize nominee and author of The Slaughter, sat down with the European Court of Human Rights. Here's what he had to say about his research into the Chinese Communist Party's huge organ transplantation network.
If you are going to China right now to get an organ, chances are a perfectly innocent person is dying for you. 65,000 people over 8 years, political prisoners. It uses this massive prisoner population, particularly Falun Gong, as a source for organs. This is the only country where this is truly legal. This is it. China. Now, this is something we all want to neglect. We all want to turn our eyes away. We're not going to stop trading with China. We're not going to, China is going to be a player in the world. How do we square the China we know with what I've just told you? It is like finding out a relative of yours is a child molester. Now, you may have known they had some problems before, but now you know they're a child molester. I've given you that knowledge. I don't tell you what to do with that knowledge. Like, I don't tell you to do anything in the book. That's not what I'm here to do, is tell the reader how to think about that. But if we are to live with ourselves, can we continue to have organ tourism to China?
Organ transplantation in China has taken place since the 1960s. According to reports, there were over 13,000 transplants in 2004. But according to Gutmann and other researchers, that number could be much higher.
Well, we went on to do further research, and in 2016 we came up with this massive doorstop of a report which shows that, in fact, they were not doing 10,000 transplants per year in China. They were doing 60,000 to 100,000 transplants per year in China. Now, that figure is pretty indisputable because Congress got behind it, and so did, actually, after looking at it quite skeptically at first, and so did the European Parliament.
And where do you think the organs for that come from? Do you concur with what you just saw in that report?
We cannot explain this any other way. I mean, we even know that the Chinese have made announcements that they're not harvesting regular criminals, murderers, rapists, and so forth at the same rate. I don't think they are. The gap is huge. It's enormous. It can't be filled. Even their made-up numbers on voluntary donations cannot fill this gap. And that leaves Uyghurs, Falun Gong, Tibetans, house Christians.
Involuntary organ harvesting is illegal under Chinese law. But in 1984, a new regulation made it legal to remove organs from executed prisoners. Dr. Enver Tohti, an ethnic Uyghur and former organ transplant surgeon in China in the mid-90s, is now a whistleblower speaking out about the surgeries he participated in. Dr. Tohti testified before the Joint Committee on Foreign Affairs and Trade in July of 2017.
And in 1995, it comes to my turn to do it. It was a Wednesday. My two chief surgeons called me into the office and told me to assemble a team with capability of largest possible surgery and report to them next day morning. 9:30 next day, we met at the hospital gate and headed towards the Western Mountain execution ground, where I was told to wait for them until hearing the gunshots. After gunshots were heard, we rushed in. An armed officer directed us to the far right corner, where I can see a civilian-clothed man lying on the ground with a single bullet wound to his right chest. My chief surgeons then ordered and guided me, extracted the liver and the 2 kidneys. The man was alive. He tried to resist my scalpel cut, but too weak to avoid my action. There was bleeding. He was still alive, but I didn't feel guilty. In fact, I didn't feel anything but like a full programmed robot doing its task. I thought I was carrying my duty to eliminate the enemy of the state. After operation, those chief surgeons took these organs with 2 strange-looking boxes, and they told me to take my team back to the hospital and remember there was nothing happened, and I followed order. We never talked about it.
Throughout the world, the wait times for an organ can be as long as 3 to 4 years. But in China, an organ can become available in as little as 2 weeks. How is that possible? Dr. Toti may have the answer.
Pre-date for your heart transplantation means that they make someone dead for you. Giving away organs to promote business means they have organ of plenty. Unlimited supply of organs only can be achieved if those organs are carried in the living body waiting to be taken on demand.
If the Chinese regime can provide healthy, functionable organs on demand, where are they coming from? There are growing concerns that organs are being harvested from living Falun Gong practitioners, Uyghurs, and other prisoners of conscience. The Chinese regime illegally banned the practice of Falun Gong in 1999 and imprisoned those caught practicing in the parks and even from their homes. Falun Gong is a practice of mind and body and is rooted in traditional Chinese culture. The health benefits for those practicing this ancient cultivation method are well known. Could this be the Chinese regime's source for so many healthy organs for their multi-million-dollar organ transplant industry? Ethan Gutman's book, The Slaughter, Mass Killings, Organ Harvesting, and China's Secret Solution to Its Dissident Problem, goes into details about the Chinese regime's organ harvesting trade. Gutman described the significance of his book and why he wrote it.
I did not write this book. It is not called Malpractice. It is not called Prisoners' Rights Abuse in China. It is called The Slaughter because these people, Uyghurs, Falun Gong pregnant women, are not even given any form to sign. There is no consent form to write out as a final act, I want to donate my organs to the state. And they're treated like animals, and they're slaughtered like animals, and that is the essence of this book. That is why I consider this a crime against humanity, not a question of prisoners' rights or rights abuse. This is a unique crime. It's one of the bigger crimes we've seen this century, maybe in the last century too. It's an unusual crime. It compares with Unit 731, but it represents a level of medical corruption that we have not seen since the Holocaust.
The Chinese regime claims they are no longer taking organs from executed prisoners and that all organs come from volunteers. But the numbers of organ transplants in China are still too high. In China, many hold Confucian beliefs that say the body should remain whole after death. This would conflict with the claim from the Communist Party that there are many willing donors lining up to voluntarily donate their organs. According to Gutman and many other researchers, the organ transplant industry is state-run, like everything in China. If we hold a regime like this in such high regard, what does it say about us? We condemn North Korea for its human rights abuses, yet we view China as a trading partner and as a part of the global community, and agree to their censorship rules when doing business inside China. However, the evidence of their human rights abuses are indisputable. When will we stop kowtowing to the Chinese Communist Party? For the BL News, I'm Rich Crankshaw. We'll see you next time.